In my 20s, I was pretty lost, confused, numb, disassociated from my body, and really in a lot of pain, but had a sense of, there's got to be a better way to be. For a lot of us men, it's almost like a kind of depression if we don't have something to throw ourselves into where we feel ourselves advancing. For a lot of guys, they're not reaching out until their pain hits a certain threshold. We don't just do these when we're broken. Ideally, you actually do these when you're well. That helps you achieve even more. Groups for guys I think they actually can start to generate for men two things that all men deeply desire: purpose and belonging. Purpose meaning my presence has an impact in the world. And belonging meaning I'm part of something, I'm connected.
Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming back Jason Lange, host of the Evolutionary Men Podcast, certified No Mr. Nice Guy coach and powerful guide for men seeking purpose, healing, and deeper emotional presence. Jason, thank you so much for coming back. I'm looking forward to jumping into the topic of men and men's healing. Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm so stoked to be back, Tim. It was so good to chat with you last time and got connected with some guys because of your show. So pretty cool.
Oh, right on. Well, let's do it again. For those who haven't listened to our previous podcast, you're in the men's healing coaching space.
Yeah, so I call myself a men's guide, but it's really just a men's coach and group facilitator. So I work with men leading men's groups, doing one-on-one coaching primarily. And, most things guys come to me around are relationships, purpose, and kind of just well-being and health, right? And feeling often stuck or in some kind of pain around one of those things. And I support guys getting more connected to themselves, getting more connected to other men, and really building the tools and skills and capacities we need as men to thrive in this day and age, which, is ever changing. And one of the many things that a lot of men get a little lost around.
It seems like there is kind of a shift where men are feeling a little bit more comfortable getting the help and advice that they need. It's not something that they need to work on just by themselves. Obviously, we have to do the work ourselves, but leaning on other people who are more skilled in that. How long have you been doing this, and how'd you get into this space?
Yeah, so my journey into leading this work really started from my journey from needing this work. I got into men's work in my mid-20s. Back in the early to mid-2000s was the first men's group I kind of experienced, and it was out of need. I was, in my 20s. I was pretty lost, confused, numb, disassociated from my body, and really in a lot of pain, but had a sense of, there's got to be a better way to be. Mm-hmm. Just frankly, there has to be a way of being in the world that isn't as uncomfortable and painful as I'm experiencing. And that led me on a pretty long journey through many different things, but really the two pivotal points that happened then where I got exposed to men's work and men's groups and somatic therapy, somatic work. So getting into my body and getting into contact with my emotions. Then lo and behold, the combination of those two ended up being one of my favorite things to do with men and for my own growth and experience. So I was just in men's work for about a decade before, I just started talking about it a lot with people I was around, because I was like, hey, this is a thing I'm in. I put a lot of time and energy into it. It supports my life. I love it, right? Some of my deepest friendships at the time were coming from this work. And as I just started to talk about it more men were asking me like, hey, that sounds cool. I'd like to try it, At the time I was in a group in Los Angeles, and one of the men was a therapist. And so we met in his office, and the limit ended up we just couldn't invite any more bodies into the room. I was like, no, we can only fit so many guys in here. So then I was like, well, maybe I'll just start leading these on my own so other men can have the experience. I started leading men's groups just on meetup.com out of my living room in the middle of LA for a number of years, just a couple times a month. Random men would come in, and I really discovered I enjoyed it. I just really enjoyed taking men deeper and had the experience over and over again of so many men just didn't even know what was possible in terms of how they could be in the world, and oftentimes didn't even realize how much pain and burden they were carrying inside. Once I got hooked there, I just kept going. More trainings and development and pivoting as a career.
What is like for somebody who's never been to a men's group, and I actually haven't ever been to a men's group, what is that environment like? Guys show up. How does it start off? If you've never been to a men's group, I'm sure it's uncomfortable to walk into a group of dudes and start, are you talking about your feelings? How does it?
The men's groups are funny, kind of like meditation. If I'm like, hey, I'm really into meditating, you could be like, well, what kind? There's like an endless variety of styles. And the same is true with men's groups. There's different men's groups that emphasize different things. Some are more about practice, some are more about accountability, some are more about support. A good group blends all of them. The groups I tend to lead, the biggest conceptual thing I just want to put out there, I can't remember if we talked about this last time, but most of us men are kind of taught and by habit relate to each other via what we call triangulation. So me and you build connection with each other by having our attention on some third thing, a sporting activity, a hike, TV screen, some topic, some philosophy, something we're targeting. But our attention is there, and us having our attention there creates some connection between us. And that's how most men by default actually relate. And that's actually great. There's no problem going to a sports game, having fun with your buddies. The problem is for a lot of men, that's the only way they relate to other guys. I've worked with numerous men who went out, spent some time with friends for a day or a weekend, and come home and are still feeling kind of empty inside. And in fact, didn't even talk to their friends about their fact that their marriage is on the rocks, or they just lost their job, right? So there's a way we can be in those traditional triangulated male social environments, but not really be connecting. A men's group, really what we're doing is we're taking the locus of our attention and we're putting it on each other. So our purpose being here is to go deep and really get real about what's going on. So, different groups are going to have a different flow, but groups I tend to lead usually start with some agreements. What are our agreements for being here? The agreements are actually what allow us to go deep. One of the most important ones for pretty much any man is confidentiality. Just when we explicitly say anything shared here today, it's not going anywhere. Men relax, like, oh, okay, wow, okay. I don't have to worry about, X, Y, or Z. And then usually after those agreements, which I have many, we do some kind of drop-in practice. So like get present in your body. Could be meditative, could be a physical practice, could be some kind of breath work. That's about really marking the transition from a craziness out there to, I'm going to get right here, right now, really show up and connect to my direct experience. And then we'll usually pivot. Some groups will have a theme or a topic. I tend to orient things to what's going on in your life. So men check in with, where are they at in life? What's hard? What's easy? What are they celebrating? What are they wanting to move towards? It's really about that process of getting honest about what's going on inside and then working with it. Sometimes men just need to be heard. Sometimes men need support and guidance or counsel. Sometimes guys have some big, huge thing they've been carrying for a long time emotionally. They just need to be witnessed in. And these big releases can start to happen. Other groups, sometimes will be about accountability, checking in on stuff, we said we were going to do. Did we do it? What got in the way? There's an endless blend, but the real idea here is we're putting our attention on each other and we're getting very honest about where are we on track in life and where do we feel off track in life? And then what's in the way? Like literally, what are the barriers to me moving towards the things I want in my life? Or if I don't even know what I want, a lot of times men's work is just helping men take the time to get clear on what are you doing with your life? So many guys get sucked into the escalator of life pretty fast. It's like, you go to college, you get into a career, and then you do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And, suddenly they're 45 and they're like, wait, how did I get here? Is this even what I want to do? And why am I doing it? The more we can dive into that head first in a men's group, often the more life-changing a man's life gets.
Does that seem to be the biggest theme with guys, that they're lacking purpose or guidance or just feeling unfulfilled? I know, talking to guys around me, it seems like that's the biggest complaint. A lot of the guys I know were former military or law enforcement, and they bury themselves in that. Once they get out of that space, we're just kind of adrift at sea, not having those support groups. And is that the biggest theme, that people are just adrift at sea in their life?
For some men, not knowing, like, why am I here? This is a real pain. I used to say, we've all kind of heard the platitude about a biological clock for women. At some point, this thing kicks in around biology and potentially wanting to have kids, and it creates an urgency. For a lot of men I work with, there's actually a correlate, but it's around purpose. It's this sense of, like, what am I doing with my life? What is it going to add up to? And what's going to be the legacy left behind it? One of the most unique types of pain a lot of men will experience is when they don't know what that is. Not feeling connected to, okay, my being here in this life is having some kind of meaningful impact of some kind. Doesn't mean it has to be like starting a world-changing nonprofit, but what am I doing every day that gives me purpose and meaning? Some men have that, but their pain is they've identified it, but they're not able to enact it at the speed they want. So, like, I want to be an artist, or I want to be a podcaster, and yet I have this other job. It's like tearing me up that I can't be doing that full time. And there's a real pain in that as well, that a lot of guys I know will have. And then some guys, it's like they found their thing and threw all their eggs into that basket, but they neglect the rest of their life, and that can create all kinds of suffering and pain that they eventually have to wake up and acknowledge. So, different manifestations of that. But one of the biggest themes for guys is feeling on purpose. We often say in this work, just this feeling of, like, I'm getting up, I know what I'm putting my energy towards, and it feels meaningful, and I'm making progress on it. That's the other thing, another way to think about this. For a lot of us men, it's almost like a kind of depression if we don't have something to throw ourselves into where we feel ourselves advancing. This could be an art, this could be a career, this could be a physical skill set, but there's like a certain type of satisfaction that comes from mastery. And if we're not plugged into that, that too will cause a lot of pain for men that I'll see showing up in groups.
That's kind of been my jam, not to make it all about me, but I'm living my experience. And so it's like, I have all these different things going on in life. I have children, I have a wife. You kind of get lost in, what is my purpose? Am I here to help other people? Am I here to just support my family? It seems like if you pick just one of those categories, you feel empty about the others. It's really hard to balance everything. In your guys' groups, you work on some of that balance and helping guys dial that in. How do you balance all this stuff?
Yeah, I wish I had a great answer for that, other than one fall at a time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that didn't work. This works. But really, this is a gross generalization, but oftentimes for men, for the masculine, once we kind of know where we're headed, everything starts to support and flow into that. And I think that's where the pain can sometimes happen for guys, is when all of our ducks aren't in a row. Right? Oh my God, so this energy's going here, this energy's going here. And the good thing about connecting to our deeper purpose, even if it's not one solid, tangible thing, for a lot of guys, it's just a sense of somewhere I'm going that I work deeply with men on, is it actually gives, it's like a compass for, well, how do I take care of my body? What kind of relationship do I want to be in? How do I want to be with my kids? The more present we are with those things, it supports us in being all in on our purpose. This is a big one a lot of guys get stuck in, and I work with them around. Once you have a sense of direction and purpose, it's much easier to identify what kind of relationships you want to have in your life, where you want to spend your time, all of that. So for me, yeah, like being a great father and supporting men in growth, those are like the two big things for me. And they're actually not that different.
Yeah.
What I care about is healthy people, right? And one way to think about my work, healthy men get into healthy relationships, create healthy families, which then can support healthy children in the world, in a sense. And that's how we change the game, like 100%.
Do you think that like men are, obviously there's so many relationships that fail, and I know it's not all men, but is there, say some dude's in a relationship right now and he's just chugging along. It's a bad situation. They've been married for 5 years and things were great. They were wonderful, but life happens and nothing bad has happened between them. But, that spark is gone and that drive is gone. What happens to those men?
This is a huge issue. Men or women, it doesn't really matter. I call this the pivot point of any relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And two ingredients that make for thriving partnerships and relationships are intimacy, closeness, trust, safety, and then polarity, which is erotic energy. It's that desire, that chemistry that electrically pulls us to our partners. And the interesting thing about those two elements are when we first meet someone, so a potential partner, we have very little intimacy and trust. We're very different, just two people who met. But we have a lot of polarity. Polarity is really the art of difference. When we first meet someone, we don't live with them. We don't know a lot about them. There's all of this unknown. And as we get to know them, what starts to happen is polarity goes down and intimacy and sameness goes up, right? So the longer we're with someone, suddenly, when we first start seeing someone, we're dating. We're putting our attention on them. The purpose of us going out is to put attention on each other. We start dating, get into a committed relationship. We're spending time with that person where the purpose is not necessarily to connect. It's, I got to do my taxes today, or we're going to do this, or we just woke up, we're watching Netflix, whatever it is. So over time, polarity actually goes down and intimacy and sameness go up. And I don't care who you are in any relationship. Some people call this the honeymoon period. It can be up to 2 or 3 years, depending on how fast you get committed. Do you move in with each other? There's a monumental shift. When the hormones start wearing off, when we first meet someone, we are flooded with hormones that want to bring us close to that person and make it feel special. It's quite intoxicating. That does not last forever. It's usually around this point of some kind of commitment, this threshold moment. The intimacy and the sameness becomes more than the polarity, and the polarity goes down. And suddenly we're inversed. Okay, we're just hanging out at home all the time. I'm in my sweatpants. We're not dressing up anymore. I know what story you're going to tell if we go out with some friends. You're going to tell this story about that dinner party and how funny that you're. Right? I know your parents. Like, we know so much more about each other, and we know each other at just a much deeper level. There's a lot more intimacy, right? We're more one than we are two. And that's the moment also where whatever unresolved attachment wounding we have from our family system is going to come up, right? So it's going to flare up, whatever those patterns are. It actually, in some sense, doesn't matter who you end up dating. It's going to happen. This is where a lot of people, guys in particular, I thought this was my one, but now I don't know. Like, we're getting into these fights, and she came over last night and I wasn't even turned on. She must not be my partner, right? It's like, well, that's going to happen with anyone inevitably. So the important thing here is we're woefully unequipped as men. We're not taught what to do when that transitional moment happens. Mm-hmm. Every piece of media we're fed as kids, boys and girls, is, they met, they fell in love, and they lived happily ever after. Like, it's just magic, right? The hard part's falling in love, which is such bullshit. The hard part is what happens after that threshold moment of, wow, Now we have to learn to consciously generate erotic energy with each other. And we have to do the deep inner work to heal our wounding so we can continually stay available in relationship. And the best, most durable couples I know in this kind of working world have shared values. One of the most important gifts of being in a relationship is this is a place where you're going to get thrown this stuff right in your face, and you either deal with it or you don't. Some men I've worked with try not to deal with it for decades, partner to partner, wife to wife. And then at some point they realize, oh crap, this keeps happening. It could be all them, or maybe there's something I'm bringing to the table here that I need to look at. That's often a very eye-opening moment for us men. We now have to train ourselves in tools and capacities for long-term relationship. How do you keep it energized? How do you keep the spark alive? How do you not just become co-parents or life managers, particularly once kids become involved? I work with so many guys, it's heartbreaking, who were fed the script of, well, as a man, your job's to provide. And if you're providing, you're a good father and a good husband. The rules are different now. Like, that's the honest truth. So they put 20, 30 years working their asses off, slamming it in their jobs, not super present in the house, not super present with their wives. Empty nest syndrome comes up, kids are heading out. Wife's like, nope, I'm done. I haven't been in love with you for years. Because we haven't actually had a we. We've just been servicing this kind of family system. That either painfully catches up to men, or more and more, I will say, I'm getting men come to me who can feel the inevitable outcome of that if they don't change something now. And they're like, okay, I want to change this now. Like, how can I have it all in some sense? And that's a big part of what I would argue men's groups and men's work is really good at, helping us get clear about what we want and what we need in our relationship, and giving us the tools to lead our intimate partnership in powerful ways.
This happens more often than not. Divorce is so prevalent. One, you can feel it coming. I've been in relationships in the past, long before you ever split up, you know it's coming. It could be 3 months or it could be 10 years. In some cases, one person is generally going to be the first person that is starting to have these feelings. As a man, how do you start guarding yourself if you feel like your wife is losing interest in you? You're working every day, you're going out there, you're earning money, but you are providing really no intimacy for your wife. You're just paying those bills and you think everything's great, but your wife is miserable. How do you see those warning signs, and what do you do to stop the bleeding, basically?
Yeah, I mean, it's just disconnection, right? For a lot of guys, it shows up, and this is kind of the tip of the iceberg that points to so much more underneath, but it's like, we're not having sex anymore and I want to have more sex.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do have sex, I can feel like she's just not into it. I can tell she's just doing it for me. It's a really painful thing. A lot of guys I work with experience that. I think their partners and wives don't always understand that it's actually not just about sex for most men. It's about the connection and the passion, and just giving us sex is actually often really painful for guys,
Mm-hmm.
really, really painful for guys. But it points to usually these deeper issues under the water of how connected are we actually? Like, what is our relationship? Just over Christmas break, I had my second kid in November, and we went down to see my mom. It was the first time we had a chance to, me and my wife, just step away for 2 hours. So her aunt and my grandma, and we set the rule. We're like, okay, we got 2 hours. We're going to go for this hike. No talking about work, no talking about the kids. It was so hard. We both caught ourselves 4 or 5 times just by default going back to that stuff, because that's kind of become the language of our relating. And to be confronted with, well, what are we? Mm-hmm. What are we independent of all that is a challenge. And it's like a flame that I think often gets neglected in relationships. One of the most important shifts men can make in this situation is not always, but oftentimes, I'm super involved in my kids' lives. I spend time with them every day. My wife and I trade off I'm very involved with chores and whatnot. Still, particularly in the newborn phase, my wife does a little more. She's carrying a little bit more of tracking invitations for kids, and there's quite a bit of labor that goes with parenting. And one of the big shifts, one of the really empowering things I can see men do is, okay, well then I am going to become the steward of our energy and relationship. So it's my job to tend the flame of us and create the moments and circumstances so that we can keep relating as lovers. And that's a huge shift for a lot of men, because oftentimes that ends up kind of defaulting on the woman, and she's doing the emotional labor of like, I just don't feel in love with you anymore. I don't feel connected. It comes up in all kinds of different ways. But as men, when we take ownership of that, it's like, okay, well, if she's going to be holding a little bit more around the house, which isn't the case in every relationship, but in a lot of them, then I'm going to hold our relationship. So what do we need to thrive together? Do we need to go on adventures? Do we need to take classes together? Do I need to book a babysitter without even asking her for 3 weeks from now to say, hey, it's handled, we're going out, just you and me? All these different things start to come into play, but men kind of have to step in and be willing to take some responsibility.
Well, congratulations on the new child. That's awesome. Thank you. It's a lot of work. I get it. I got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I think a lot of the, me and my wife have definitely, my wife, I give her all the credit. She has been going out of her way to make sure that it seems like almost every week that we get a babysitter, even if it's for a couple of hours, and we go out together and sit down and have a conversation, because for about 4.5 years, we didn't really do that. I mean, it's hard to juggle with kids, but you start feeling like something's missing, like that bond we're just two people sharing chores. And so I give her all the kudos for helping, and I'm doing my best. But I think the key is to spend quality time together and actually do those fun things you used to do, because it's so easy to get caught up in everyday life that a month will go by, 2 months, and all of a sudden you're like, I haven't spent any time with this person except for, doing household duties. And so you got to keep those relationships going. Most guys, when they get to the point of contacting you, are they doing a preemptive strike? Are they trying to help themselves before there's a problem? Or is most of the guys coming to you when there's already a problem?
I wish I could say it was more of a preemptive strike for a lot of men, but there's just the truth and all kinds of cultural reasons for this. For a lot of guys, they're not reaching out until their pain hits a certain threshold, right? It's just like something is not working and it has to change. Either, my wife said, I don't think I can do this anymore, or she left me, or, if you're a single guy, I had yet another first date that went nowhere. That kind of pain really will get guys. Career-wise, it's, I feel stuck. I hate my job, or I got laid off. I don't know what to do next. That pain is huge for men. Or oftentimes just a certain level of disease, like depression, or they've had some kind of injury and they can't act in their body in ways they used to. And that pain will have them reach out, right? Like, I'm willing to try anything at this. Sometimes it's, a little bit more the slow moving train of, I can just feel like this is not headed in a good direction, but I don't actually know how to shift it. And that's often a deeply disempowering feeling for men, which becomes a source of pain that will often then have them reach out as well. So, it's changing a little bit as time goes on, and, shows like this and opportunities to get the message out of just changing the culture. That's like, as men, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be stuck. There's nothing wrong with you. We go to the gym to work out our bodies. And guess what? We don't just do that when we're messed up or injured. We do that because we want to thrive. This is the thing I tell so many guys. Same thing with our hearts and our heads. Therapy, coaching, group work. We don't just do these when we're broken. Ideally, you actually do these when you're well. That helps you achieve even more. It's like a wellness thing. It's about efficiency, proficiency, and joy, frankly. We're starting to see a little that men are getting a little more preemptive, but it still does tend to be sourced in a lot of pain.
So if there's a guy listening right now who feels totally stuck and isn't working out, isn't doing any of the stuff that you preach, what would kind of the first thing somebody should do to start getting on the right path?
This is so huge because most men, and honestly, a lot of men's work, what will default to is strategy. Oh, I need to set a clear list of goals and then implement a structure, move towards that, and then I'll start doing those things and then I'll feel great, right? I need to submit 2 job applications a week. I need to work out, and whatever that is. And there's huge power and capacity in that. The challenge with that is that almost always those types of kind of shifts or goals rely on willpower. And willpower, turns out, is just terrible fuel for actual transformation. Our tank, if you're not on video, it's like we have these teeny tanks. So our capacity to will ourselves through things is actually pretty small. It's like, oh, yeah, I have a great day. I've been on my workout schedule for 3 days, and then someone cuts me off in traffic, and I don't know, I get a flat tire, and suddenly that willpower is gone. It's just like, it's actually quite fragile. So totally antithetical to what a lot of guys think. My answer is going to be get connected. This is where you need to get connected to other men in particular, I would say. So find somewhere to bring your story and your pain forward. Connection is the thing so many of us men, and we're taught this, are absolutely deficient on, right? And all I mean is literally connection comes down to spending time with people who have their attention on us and who we make eye contact with and listen to us. It sounds woo-woo, but it is completely tied into our nervous systems. We have, you've probably heard of the vagal nerve, this huge bundle of nerves that go from the base of our brain down our spine. And it's basically what connects our body to our brain. And turns out it's kind of the air traffic control for regulating all the systems in our body. And lo and behold, one of the most powerful ways to shift that is through socializing, through deep connection, relating, eye contact, breath, literally the pitch and tone of our voice. So part of what I'm pointing to here is whether it's connection or you could also say regulation. What a lot of guys, I've fallen for this, and I still see lots of guys falling for this is, oh, I'm going to make the list and force myself to do the things, but they skip the step of what is the state of my nervous system? If the state of your nervous system is dysregulated, you are already sabotaging yourself with anything you want to change or create. Connection, like I say in a men's group in particular, is one of the ways we can start to shift that immediately. I'll have guys come into groups sometimes and just talking about things. I mean, this is like the lowest hanging fruit, but just talking about, yeah, I'm a little sad about this, or I'm kind of pissed at my boss for this. Sometimes that alone will start to relieve energy and shift their nerves. It's like, oh yeah, I feel a little bit better. None of the situation has changed. None of the circumstances have changed, but I feel a little bit better because suddenly there's been some movement. And what I've just seen is guys get connected and regulated in groups. It's not like having to force ourselves to do these things to make these changes. It's suddenly like, I have the energy and I'm feeling drawn to do that, which is very, very different. Very, very different.
Say there's a guy and he's in a relationship and they are not separated, but no connection. And this guy thinks that a men's group is the way for him to improve his life, improve their relationship. But his partner is saying, well, that's just even more time away from me, taking even more attention off of me. What would you say to those women, or what advice would you give to those guys who want to join a men's group, but they already feel like they've got too many things going on? Is there a way you can explain to people that this actually would
Sure.
improve your relationship, not take away from it?
Yeah, two things. If you think you have too much going on, you probably do. Getting into a good group is going to help you get really honest about where you probably need to start setting some stronger boundaries in your life. Hey, where can I actually be available? And where do I maybe have to let some things, sometimes painfully for men, die on the vine of like, oh yeah, maybe I can't do all the things. So, again, a good group, what it can really do is help us get really clear on what's most important. Literally, what is most important in my life that I want to be putting my time and attention on. So for one, even though you're going to be taking more time to get into the group, it's going to help you clarify and let go of things that are not ultimately serving your life. I see that all the time. Number two, particularly for spouses who are maybe a little unsure, I would actually offer it up as an experiment. Hey, here's what I want to do. I want to go do this. And then I want you to tell me how it feels to be around me when I am around. What I generally see, and my wife could report this, and many spouses of men I work with, is though they may be taking that time away, the time they do spend with their partners or their families, we're often, as men, we become a lot more present and actually there. And that is incredibly important, right? So the equation changes a little bit where sometimes this can be a painful transition for wives in particular, but it's oftentimes, maybe there's some initial pushback, but oftentimes what I've seen is they would rather spend less time with you, but much higher quality time than what a lot of us men do. We're overloaded, we feel burdened, so we half-ass everything. I'm kind of spending time with you, but I'm checking my phone, I'm actually thinking about work, I'm a little stressed, or I'm just so fucking tired. We do finally have our date out, our 2 hours a month or whatever as parents, and I have like nothing in the tank to give you. What I've found is a lot of spouses will actually trust us more as men if we start to own, yeah, actually, I'm going to go to that group and I need this much time a month for myself or tonight so that when I come back home, I can really be here with you and the family. And if you're not half-assing that, meaning it actually creates that impact in you, partners will almost always be okay with it, in my experience. And another way to think about that is, yeah, what's it feel like after, right? Anytime I go to a group, I go away on retreat, my wife loves how I return. Let's just say my energy's high. I feel better in my body. I'm more relaxed. I'm way more available to her. So to her, that is worth losing access to me for a certain period of time because I come back deeper.
This is so important. There just seems to be so many guys who are curious about getting the healing, but there's a lot of guys who I think don't believe healing is possible. If there's guys out there who are like, they want to change, but don't really believe that's possible, what would you say to them?
It sure shit is. It can absolutely change, and often faster than some men realize. The thing is, where change often doesn't happen is if we don't have the right tools and support. And accountability, right? It's kind of all three. And, these days, podcasts and books, it's really easy to get access to the tools, but the integration is the hard part, right? Like, yeah, I still got triggered with my wife yesterday or whatever. We have access to more information than ever. That's not the hard part anymore. Most of us can self-diagnose all kinds of problems, but how do we actually change it, right? That's the hard part. What I've seen and why I orient a lot of my work around these group relationships is that what makes this stuff sticky, right? So by entering a group, we start to get accountability, people track us, our identity also often starts to shift. And just what I've seen, the other liberating thing so many times, I see that every week in groups I lead, as men, it's very easy for us to create the story of, oh, I'm so messed up because other guys have it figured out around I'm really unique in my pain. And yeah, we all are to some extent. But I can tell you sit in a group long enough and it's like, oh, I brought that forward. Oh shit. Yeah, I totally get that. And that moment of mutual recognition of pain in itself is unbelievably healing for men. Oh, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was maybe the only one. And now I have 6 other guys raising their hands, showing me that, yeah, I felt that too. It's this incredible thing that starts to happen where our pain, actually as men, becomes part of what helps us feel connected to other men. And suddenly this thing we had a lot of shame about, or we thought we were stuck in forever, starts to create connection with other men. And that immediately starts to shift things. And there's this realization that, oh, I'm not stuck. I'm not alone. And then what I often see as well is one of my first buddies in a men's group, he used to call this the sunlight effect of like, whoa, I see my brother here making changes. He took a risk and tried something different or whatever it might be. Even though to him, it might not be, because this is the other thing that I see in men's group all the time is our self-story, our self-image is always the last thing to update, right? So we might actually be living differently, but our story is it's all exactly the same. Other people, you see it instantly. It's like, oh yeah, no, man, you're totally different. And sometimes when we start to see other men transforming in that way and then get that reflected, it creates a momentum. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't have to do it perfect. I'm allowed to mess up. I can ask for help when I need it. And it is possible to change, to do things differently. I see that happen in men's groups all the time. I've had guys come to me literally holding things or being stuck around things that they've had for 20, 30, 40 years. And they bring it into a group, they start working with it. Honestly, one of the biggest things is they start to be seen around it, heard around it, and it transmute whatever that thing is from shame into connection. And then it's like, we're unstoppable as men.
I don't really remember from our last conversation, what's the role of spirituality in your life? Do you have any, or do you believe that, there's a higher power out there to help us?
Yeah, totally. I have a spiritual side for sure. I'm not religious in a sense, but I work with guys of all faiths and backgrounds. Part of what I really love about deep men's work is it's actually compatible with any belief system, really. I mean, my spirituality, I guess you could say, is that, yeah, there's a force of love or evolution. You can call it God, spirit. You can have a first person relationship with it. You can have a second person relationship with it. You can have a third person relationship with it. But that it's calling us all and guiding us all towards something. And we either get to co-participate in that or not. And when we choose not to, it can be really painful, really painful. When we choose to kind of turn towards it, it helps. And, there's just an orientation of, oh, okay, it all matters if I want it to, and I choose to take that on.
Yeah. I just feel like in my life, spirituality has always been a part of my life. I haven't always paid close attention to it, but when I don't, and it could be God or the universe or whatever you are comfortable calling it, I feel like we're all kind of given gifts and purposes in life. And when we're not following those is when it hurts the most. I feel like that's where a lot of men get lost in their purpose and in their lives, because they're not pursuing those things that that they were born for, put here on earth for. And, you could go down a lot of rabbit holes on why we're all here. And I like to do that. But, I feel like that's a huge problem with men, is that they don't follow their path or their purpose.
Again, it's that kind of pain of sometimes not knowing what it is or not knowing how to move towards it, right? One of the most common sources of so much pain for men I know is, I'm doing this to make money, but I really want to be doing this. And that gap is everything. I literally don't know how to pivot my life, my career, whatever, to that. That is an extraordinary source of pain for guys. I do a lot of purpose work with guys I work with. And yeah, a big part of it is, not always, but to a shocking degree, our deepest purpose is often connected to our deepest pain. People will often trust us and frankly pay for us to give them solutions around is what's the pain and we had in our life that we figured out. For me, one of the things I often help men is how do you get from A to Z? If you're doing this for a living and you want to do this, that's something I've been living for years, figuring it out. And that it's not an easy thing, but there's ways to do it. So guys will come to me because they're like, hey, I see you figuring that out. How are you doing that? Right? That kind of simple. But we all often have a version of that, right? That actually our greatest gift to bring forward in the world is connected to our greatest source of pain. And why that is because it's an intimate firsthand experience we have of what it means to live with that. So we're uniquely qualified to support other people in moving past that or healing that in a way that's not just a theoretical thing. It's like, oh no, I know that this shows up all the time. And you know, when I hear men coming to me, they're, oh, I heard your story about X, Y, or Z. And like, yeah, I've been there. And then again, this is what starts to feed right into men's groups when we start sharing these stories and guys realize like, oh yeah, wow, you had that experience. I'm having that right now. How did you figure that out? And, you know, I did a piece recently just to kind of tie this together. One of the reasons I'm so fervent about groups for guys is I think they actually can start to generate for men two things that all men deeply desire: purpose and belonging. So purpose meaning my presence has an impact in the world. And belonging meaning I'm part of something, I'm connected, right? And a good group actually can serve both, because this is the thing that a lot of guys wake up to as I see them in groups of, oh, wow, my feedback, my honesty, my vulnerability, sometimes literally sharing my pain or shame or anger or fear, whatever that might be, grief, is often the exact thing that then starts to move that and unlock that in another man. It's like, oh my God, I didn't even realize, like when you started talking about that thing that happened with your dad, wow, it really landed for me. And I realized I have that thing too. And so me sharing my being on purpose actually impacts the men. If I'm in group or I'm not in group, like it has a very visceral impact. And then we have this sense of belonging because we're part of a system of care and mutuality that is a deep need for so many men.
A lot of the guys that you work with and go through your program, what would you say, and I don't need a specific number, but I'm curious, do most men feel like they get some sort of resolution and a new purpose in life? Do they actually change their life? You know?
Some absolutely do. Some, it becomes a pretty destabilizing truth of like, oh yeah, something's got to change here. Some it's a little more gradual and slow, but that the clarity definitely comes. So just another way to person. I'm clear about what I want in my life. As I say, guys I work with, I teach, there's 3 questions every man has to be able to answer about himself. And this is what's key, independently of his intimate relationship. Who am I? What do I want? And where am I going? Where am I going really just means, how am I going to get there? When we don't have that compass of those things figured out, life is painful as men. It's like we're adrift at sea. The key thing here is identifying those things. You don't actually have to have finished or succeeded in them all to feel successful or good. It's literally just knowing, oh, I'm going in that direction. Oh, I have a sense of direction. And I can feel myself making progress, even if I sometimes zig or zag or backtrack, or sometimes set a new waypoint. There's this sense of I'm moving towards something. And it's such a game changer for guys. As they start to get that clarity, I do see it change their lives. I often see it change their relationships significantly. They get in or out of relationships that aren't serving them, or finally commit to ones they've been like a little one foot on the gas, one foot out, and they start to go for it. Same thing with career changes, tough conversations, you name it. A group becomes a place to come back to for safety and connection. Unlike what a lot of guys think, it doesn't make us soft. It actually makes us more bold. It's like, oh shit, I can try some stuff. And if I fall on my face, I actually have a place to go to get back up, healed and restored and praised. I've been in groups where one of the most joyful things we did was we made our resume of failures. all the places we just fucking ate shit, totally failed. And we take this pain and this immense laughter starts to come through when you realize that we all fuck up. We all make mistakes and we don't have to, it's like, oh yeah, I tried that. That didn't work. I tried that. That didn't work. But it becomes connection again. So a good group gives us connection, which helps us take those risks. Usually most guys, when I get them into a group within 3, 6, 9 months, parts of their lives are almost unrecognizable.
Well, if people are interested in joining one of your groups, what's the best way to get a hold of you? And what would you recommend? What's your point of contact, I guess?
Totally. I think I actually have a new program coming out for guys that want to experience a men's group. It's called the Men's Group Experience. Easiest way to find out about that right now, there's a waiting list. I'll be opening the doors here pretty soon. Go to the domain mens.group, just mens.group. And that'll take you right to the page. And it's a way for you to kind of get a 12-week taste that you can extend if you want with your group. But to just, get a flavor of, hey, what does it mean to relate in these ways? These are online groups, so you can do them from anywhere. Some guys will then take them offline, but that would be the biggest thing. If you just go to mens.group, that'll take you over to my site. You can learn about all the different programs I do there. This is the big one I'm trying to get out there now because guys just, it's time to move away from doing things alone, get some connection and feel the power of in depth of what good male community and connection can do and how it will resource you and move towards the things you most want in your life.
Right on. Jason, I appreciate you taking time to speak with us and share your knowledge. You're very knowledgeable and you're doing God's work, in my opinion. So I really appreciate you taking the time and thank you all for watching. If you found value in this episode, I hope you share it and check out Jason's group, and I appreciate you all joining me.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.